All right. Hello, everybody. Hello. This is Shalene Michelle Tate, MBA, host of your Foster My Stories podcast, which is the achievement podcast for the foster, adoption, orphan, and marginalized community. I'm so thankful to have today's guest who's closing out the month of May with me. Uh, could you introduce yourself, guest, amazing guest, to the listeners that's going to be watching this content?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maricella
Uh-oh.
Alaniz.
I can't hear you, Miss. I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Let's see. Are you muted? No worries. We're gonna get you situated. And hello, guests. Those are who are tuning in right now. My guest is getting her mic and stuff situated. No worries.
Shalina,
Nothing's
can you
muted
hear
on
me?
my end. No. Oh, let's try this. Is that better?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. I'm
Cause
sorry.
no, you good. No, you're good. It was on my end. It was on my end.
Okay.
Were you able to hear me
I can
earlier?
hear you perfectly. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
awesome. So introduce yourself, and we're going to go from there.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maricella Alaniz. And thank you for having me on, Miss Shalina. I
You,
appreciate you.
you welcome. Thank you. I'm honored that you're my guest. I can't wait for the listeners to meet you and get to know you. And so we're going to really highlight today, everyone, amazing testimony from this remarkable lady here. She's going to talk about some real stuff that many have faced but don't really want to talk about. But we're just going to let it flow, right? So today's topic is talking to a real parent who has faced foster care as it relates to her children. And but the praise report that we also want to go into is the fact that she's gotten them back multiple times. And so we're going to talk from that perspective. And then we're going to cover some ways of how, we as individuals, myself, and supporting her and supporting the community, foster care community, and other communities, how we can rally really and try to, petition to the foster care systems of better ways, better solutions that can be helpful as it relates to that journey. So let's start this off.
Mhm.
Could you uh, tell the listeners, because your testimony is a little bit different from what I normally start off with. Could you tell the listeners just a snippet, just a snippet about your background, your upbringing, and then how you got to your first part of your testimony, and then we're going to go to those other parts of the testimony.
Okay. Well, I would say for the most part, as far as growing up, my childhood wasn't that great.
It's okay.
But I just kind of learned to kind of adult at unfortunately at a really young age. Um, but over the years, at some point, I had a family of my own, and found myself in a position where um, I was raising young children by myself, and it
Okay.
was
Yes.
hard.
Yes. Yes. And yeah. And you know what? I'm so excited that you're going to be sharing your testimony because there's a lot of women out here who can relate. And they also, whether they know it or not, they really do need to hear your testimony and what you've been through. Because I do believe whatever you say today is really going to help somebody. So, but um, we're only going to cover whatever you feel comfortable. And really, at the end of it, we want to just encourage everybody to know that life happens, and but that there is support. So, could you take us from, you know, just the first leading up to the first moment of okay, so now you're a parent, you're raising your beautiful children, but then real life happens as it does. Could you take us from the first time and really the stuff you kind of went through that you're able to talk about, and then the moment of the reunification and getting them back, and then we'll go from there.
So I would say back in about 2015, 2014, 2015. I had my first encounter with CPS, Child Protective Services. I didn't know anything about him. Me personally had not ever known anyone who has dealt with them. Even as bad as my childhood was, they were just, this was not, I was not familiar with them. They never came into our lives whenever I was growing up.
Yeah.
Um, but so back in 2015, I found myself in a really tough spot. I um, I initially called out to a phone number to try to, which is 211 at the time here in Texas, to try to get some help on looking for a new job. I was just having a really hard time, you know. I
Yeah.
had just moved into another place. I was alone with the kids at the time, did not have any family support, was not communicating with anyone in my family, unfortunately. And so I just really felt like I was by myself. I felt
Yeah.
like um, I had no support. And
Oh, don't freeze up. Yeah. Sorry,
um,
your computer's trying to freeze up, but that's okay. We
oh,
got this. We got this. You're fine. It's gonna work.
so
It's gonna work.
So
Yeah.
again, it just kind of stemmed from me feeling like I had no support. I was really alone, and by myself with my children. And I want to say this about that part of my life, um, that I had to learn along the way. And I probably didn't have support at the time because over the years, I discovered that I had this mentality of not asking for help even when I felt like I really needed it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a pride thing, and maybe I could have had the support and the help that I needed, but at the time, that was just the space that I was in. You know, I wasn't seeing then what I see now.
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
what, so initially, I ended up reaching out for some resources. I had an officer come out to my house to do a welfare check, and right behind him came two CPS investigators.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I talked with them. They seen that, according to them, that I was in distress, and I was, I was told that it would be best if I checked myself into
Oh,
um, a, a mental kind of slash institute, just to go get checked out.
hmm.
Of course, I immediately said no. Um, and they asked me if there was anywhere my children could go. And again, since I felt like I had no support, no circle, was not talking to my family at the time, I told them no. Um, CPS promised to return my children if I checked myself into a hospital for only 48 hours. It was totally
Hmm.
voluntary. And I sat there for a really long time and talked to them, even though it was not a decision that I planned on doing or wanted to make or anything. I really was under a lot of stress and I felt like I could not take care of my children, that something
Hmm.
needed to happen. And at that time, I felt like that was the best choice.
Hmm.
I cried and
Hmm.
I was confused and
Yeah.
every emotion you could possibly think of. And,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I watched two caseworkers walk out with all my children.
Hmm.
And I checked myself in voluntarily to a hospital. And that 48 hours ended up turning into 3 weeks
Hmm.
inside of a hospital. I was served with um, I was served with paperwork,
Hmm.
um, stating that I was a threat to myself
Hmm.
because um, uh, the doctor had recommended, or the doctor at the time in the hospital had diagnosed me, I'm sorry, with a major depressive disorder
Hmm.
and um, anxiety. And so again, that voluntary stay turned into a mandatory stay
Hmm.
for 3 weeks, and then I was served with state paperwork
Hmm.
um, from Child Protective Services stating that they were now keeping my children because of my diagnosis of major depressive disorder. Mind, I had never hurt my children. I had never. So obviously, I was really confused. Didn't understand what was going on. No one explained
Hmm.
the, you know, lingo or the language. So I just kind of went with it, and I, agreed to their services, and it was a really long, tough journey, so to speak. It lasted
Mhm.
about a year and a half.
Mm.
Um, I went through some ups, I went through some downs, but ultimately, and through
Yeah.
all of that, I continued to fight, as I'm still
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, pretty much, I mean, from that year and a half, like I said, there was lots of ups and downs during that, especially with my children, them having to experience that for the first time. Um, and so, at the end of the day, God came through.
Yeah.
I hadn't even made it in the courthouse yet. And by the time I made it downstairs and past security, I was told by my lawyer who met me downstairs that the judge had completely and totally dropped the CPS case against me, and that the children
Yeah.
would be returning home. That was the end of that. It's
let me let me just express once again, thank you for just being my guest today. And I know, kind of reflecting on that was not easy for you, but I want to commend the fact that you're sharing it. And from my, I'm gonna just, this is just from my perspective. It doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. Um, I kind of felt like because you didn't have the right support there to kind of like advocate on your behalf, it was so easy for the officers to kind of talk you into saying, "Oh, you have this, you have that." The only reason I'm saying that is because I've seen that in my lifetime. If you know, a lot of times, if you don't have the right people in your ear or right there, like kind of like interceding for you, or at least know that you have that, right? Then anybody who's in a different position, like the officers or the court, could say, "Are you sure you don't have PTSD? Are you sure you don't have this?" And like you just said, you was clearly able to express you've never laid a hand on your children. I
no,
just think it was a matter of, unfortunately, you did not have the right support that can intercede and say, no, she is going through a tough time right now, but doesn't mean it's always a mental thing. You need to be on medication. You need to be locked up. You don't need to be labeled. I'm a huge advocate again. I don't know, because I've seen it in my lifetime where a lot of times minorities and people of color, we tend to get pushed into that. And but the testimony for part one, hey, Miss Nevada says that Marcella is she is so proud of you, that you're doing a great job. Beauty for ashes is your portion. Thank you, Miss Nevada.
right.
Thank you so much. And that's a dynamic support system right there. So we thank you for
Yes,
that,
thank
Ms.
you.
Nevada. It's already done ministries is saying, tell your story, blessing so many others. Telling your story is blessing so many others. I agree with that as well. Don't I'm gonna just express this as well. I'm gonna piggyback off of what they're saying in the comment section. Don't I'm gonna just say this. If nobody's ever told you this, don't feel ashamed that that happened to you. I'm gonna say it again. Don't feel ashamed that that happened to you, because a lot of times stuff happens to us and we feel like we caused it, we it's our fault. Now circumstances, life do happen, but a lot of times, once again, I'm reflecting on, you just didn't have somebody standing in the gap for you. I don't believe it was a you need to be in a mental facility, you need to be locked up, you needed it to be, you just didn't have the right support that can meet you right where you were. But the praise report for part one is that God interceded still on your behalf through that judge that said your case is dropped. Ah, man, take us from that moment of really hearing those words after really serving that time. And by the way, that time that you served, it was really part of your testimony to then go back and pull the ones that are going through that now. I'm just saying. So you
Yeah.
went through it for a purpose. You had really a Joseph moment of being thrown in jail, falsely accused, and but your testimony is going to bring others out, just like they said in the comment section. Take us from that moment of, and it's okay. I'm so proud of you. We're all proud of you. Take us from that moment of um hearing those words. You must have felt like he was in a dream. Am I saying that right? It wasn't real. This is not happening, but it was a celebration. It was a cause of celebration. Take us from that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a celebration. Though it was tough,
Yeah,
especially for the kids.
yeah,
It was a celebration, but the same amount of faith
yeah,
that I had then, I still have it
yeah,
now. And
yeah,
everything and anything that has happened over these last several years, that has been a lot.
yeah.
Uh, I know that God has everything to do with it.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes. And he got you. I mean, he's had you that whole time
yeah.
for a time such as this. And so, once again, your testimony is healing. Just you speaking today is healing, whether you know that or not. Is bringing healing, which is also why you've probably had a lot of battles and just different stuff come at you, but God is still getting the glory, right? And so, listeners, if you're just not tuning in, I'm here with Miss Maricella Alaniz, who is a wonderful, amazing person. She is representing for the parents who have had the experience of having their children taken into child protective custody. And so, what we're doing today with her is really kind of like highlighting the different points that she's been through. Her testimony was supposed to be a three-part. Unfortunately, because stuff has happened beyond my control, we're going to present it to you here. So you, if you're tuning into this today, you are in for a treat of really being in depth into this real conversation. But if you're catching the replay, no worries. You could play this back over again. You can share this with family, friends. You can find healing for yourself, and you know that we're here to also support you. Could you then take us to what was some for part one, and we're about to go into part two of how part two happened for you as well. What was some lessons? Were there any lessons or questions? And we're going to go over those questions too. What were there any lessons or questions that arose for you, like, well, that you want to talk about from coming from part one, based
Um,
off what happened?
I think I guess I mean I guess my biggest question was, how does a person who find themselves in my situation, dealing with some mental health or depression or whatever it is, stress, financial issues, I mean, the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
How can a person walk in how can a person, who's responsible for children as a parent, I mean, obviously our goal and our sole responsibility is to make sure that our children are safe and that they're protected.
Yeah.
But when we're struggling, how can we ensure that we will get the help
Mm-hmm.
that we truly need,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yes.
without it tearing apart the family?
Yes.
Um, because I truly feel like that, even though God came through, like He's always going to come through,
Yeah. Yeah.
feel like a lot of that could have been prevented. Um,
Yes.
I didn't have to be separate from my children, because that just started a whole chain of
Yeah. Yeah.
trauma and everything else.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably my biggest question, but still in that question, the lesson for me is still, even in the good, the bad, the ugliness of it all, um, learning to still trust God, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that probably is just learning to trust God even when it doesn't
Yes.
feels dark, when it
Yeah.
feels, when there's questions, when there's, when you don't understand, when you're confused, when
Yes.
it feels unfair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still learning to trust God is still is my biggest, is the biggest lesson in
Yes.
all of it.
And you're sharing a very real thing, right? Because when we go through whatever we go through, whether it's like what we may consider like something small or something big, I had a lot of big things recently. The reminder, like you just said, is to still find the remembrance to still trust God. Like we have, like you mentioned as well, we have seen His goodness, we've seen His grace, we've seen His mercy, but then there's times when we do go through stuff, setbacks and delays and just things that are like, that's not fair. We do have those moments of forgetting, because I'm right there with you with that.
Mhm.
Wait a minute. We have a big God that has helped us so many times before. So a lot of times we do need those reminders to still hold on to hope when everything around us feels hopeless. Um, so once again, yeah, I the scripture that you have with you, can you read that?
Oh, okay. Um, so I need help. Well, wait, I have it pulled up on my phone. So this is a scripture that God gave me in this season. Um, you want to help me pronounce
Yeah.
it if you can
Yeah.
remember it?
Yeah. So everyone, she is reading scripture that she just got from the book of Haggai, and yes, she's awesome. She's gonna read that, and I we pray that it blesses you, listeners. I know it's gonna be for all of us, really, but um, I'm wanting her to share that to
Um,
hopefully encourage somebody.
Haggai. Okay, so it's in Haggai. Sorry, I
It's,
had
it's
trouble
okay.
pronouncing it.
It's okay.
Second 9, and the Lord kept telling me over and over and over again, the glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former, says the Lord of hosts. And in this place I will give peace,
Mm,
says the Lord.
mm.
Just over and over, God kept showing me that.
My heart is doing cartwheels right now because you don't even know what before even getting on here today with you, the
Mhm.
foolishness. But God is just like you just said. Oh, Miss Nevada said yes when it's hard and seems impossible. Look to Him anyway. Bring His word back to Him, just like you are doing. That is so right. Thank you, Miss
Yeah.
Nevada, because that's a
Thank you.
constant reminder of being put back in remembrance. Remembering His word helps keeps us. Um, a lot of times when we do look and be or we do get into the place of okay, calming down myself and remembering to like open your word. Sometimes a scripture will bring me back to a song I've heard, and I'm like, oh, that song I heard on the radio, that's where that came from because it was a testimony. And that goes back to the word, your words today is fulfilling the scripture. We overcome by the words of our testimony, which is what you're doing. You're overcoming despite whatever you've been through. You are overcoming, and it's not no whatever you've been through. It's really all of what you've been through, not just with your kids, not just with the system that needs to be mended tremendously, but all of your life you're overcoming. So thank you, Miss Nevada, for that. I'm just in awe because even you reading that scripture is reminding me of a confirmation for other earlier. So thank you for sharing that. And once again, she read from the book of Haggai. Did you say chapter 2? Was it chapter 2,
Oh,
verse
yes. Chapter 2, verse 9. Yes.
chapter 2, verse 9?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And the lesson, so basically put a pin in it, listeners. That lesson was, how did that even escalate her situation? Part one, how did that even escalate to that point? And that goes back to man, real life happens as it does. Is like, and what she was saying is, how can there be an alternative to situations like that where maybe there are people that intervene, but it was not to the detriment of, okay, let's just put you in a mental facility, let's just put you on medication, okay, let's just take your kids away. And yes, I I grew up in the 80s where a person could just make a phone call. Oh, I see something happening over there, and then that's it. Today, it's supposed to be more of a thorough job of investigating and making sure that calls that they get 24/7 are not just because somebody's mad at the person, right? Is that, is this a legitimate call? Is this a legitimate claim? And so, the first point in what was reflected is, one, the awareness of, we need to address better ways of intercessory, as far as how do we help parents and families when they face those tough things. And so that's one. We'll keep it there. Take us
Mhm.
to point two. So you got through that testimony of that praise report of the judge, and really that was a divine intervention from God. How much time passed until you face part two? And part two is and by the way, those of you who are watching or have been watching for a while, part two and three is a repeat of part one. I'm just saying. Okay.
um so I would say the time frame that passed between, I would say about a year and a half. um a year and a half. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, no, you're good. I meant to also add, what for you, what changed? What was a significant change from that time frame to that also you felt may have been a contributing factor? Or yeah, we'll get into it. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you talk.
Okay. So um though through it all,
Yeah.
preparing for the kids to come home,
Okay.
back to a new home, new environment, is kind of completely starting over,
Yeah.
um, getting over the depression that I had went through.
Yeah.
Um, I was seeing the kids obviously during those times, but if anyone is familiar, any CPS visits are
Yeah.
usually monitored and they're for a very short time.
Yeah.
So even in those moments of completely feeling like I was completely prepared,
Mm,
to have the kids back home,
yeah.
that was my hope. That was my what I had prepared for. That's what I had showed the courts.
Yeah.
Um, the kids were home for about a year and a half, and I was not. And during that time, I was, uh, the kids. I would say I did not fully understand the trauma
Mm-hmm.
they had been through.
Mm,
I was
mm,
not prepared for that. Um, I was not prepared for that.
mm,
Um, and so on the flip side of that, the kids being home, back home with mom, though, we had many moments where I was happy, they were happy. There was lots of traumatic, there were lots of behaviors that I had
mhm,
not seen from them before, but I knew that it stemmed from
mm,
from their
mm,
trauma, and I had not been educated on that.
mm,
I didn't educate myself on being trauma informed at that time.
mm,
It was not something that I was prepared for. It wasn't anything.
mm,
It was just I was not prepared for that. So on top of that, a lot more stress came.
mm.
um, Probably more stressful than it was the first time this time.
Yeah.
Um, because now, uh, I'm dealing with behaviors that I was not familiar with,
Mhm,
and they were
mhm,
pretty extreme.
mm,
And a lot of times I ask myself, well, I didn't, every time I, would visit them or see them or spend time with them, I had not seen the side of my children. Um, and I again found myself unprepared for that and stressed completely and over the top stressed. And I would say the truth is I became a bad parent.
Mm,
And when I say that, I was a bad parent because I was impatient.
mm,
I yelled. Um, I screamed. I did not know how to handle my children's behavior because I did not understand it. And it just caused things to just go downhill for the most part.
mhm.
So CPS got involved again. Um, so this was their second time getting involved.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm going to continue to commend you for being so transparent about something that is so difficult to talk about and that millions, billions have gone through, but never knew that they could talk about it. And I'm going to express once again, this is from my point of view, my point of view. Um, how could you ever be prepared or know to be prepared for something so traumatic as your kids being taken away? You can't, and because real life happened to you. And I'm going to say as well that you weren't a bad parent. You were reacting to something that whatever trauma they faced by. So for those of you who are just tuning in, we are highlighting a real testimony of a parent, Maricella, whose babies were taken from her in moments of just kind of, you know, going through it as a parent. But CPS
Mhm.
came in, they took her kids, and instead we were pinpointing one point. How could that have been different on that portion than take the kids away, put her in a facility, how could that have been played differently? And I have a notebook full of ways it could have been played differently. Two, we're on the second point. She's back with her kids, but I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine how difficult it was. You're now seeing the traumas they've been through. And by the way, I'm going to say this, it wasn't your fault. They were in a real thing of being removed, and then the traumas they faced in the foster placements that they were in. That's another real thing. Listeners. Okay, for those of you who don't know, quick testimony. 17-year foster care uh, alum. So I know what Marcella. I know it from that end. I know what it feels like being taken away, put in foster care, and then you have to kind of adjust to the family and the home and the other youth that may be there. And you will see, hear, and experience stuff. And for her kids, it sounded like they went through their own trauma and they brought that back. But the reality is nobody could ever prepare for the reunification, which that's point two. It needs to be addressed on better reunification. I know a lot of us, the faces of foster care, and we're getting to that with you as well, the faces of foster care movement that we're all a part of. Um, we're advocates for foster care reform. We're advocates for how can we and what we do now as leaders, now as business owners, now as developing leaders like Marcella, how can we change the narrative of what we've been through and what others may face? Ms. Nevada is saying, praying for your strength in this very moment. Yes, yes, we are. Steady your heart and mind, God, in Jesus' name. She also says, yeah, thank you so much for that, Ms. Nevada. Thank you. To God be the glory. Dr. Kaiser, it's good to see you. Shalom and great afternoon. Hello, Dr. Kaiser. Dr. Kaiser is the visionary of the Faces of Foster Care, an amazing movement that we're all a part of. So is Maricella, who just wrote for the Faces of Foster Care Volume 3. But all of these are testimonies of coming from foster care situations. Hers is unique because she's speaking from a parent's perspective of a real thing, having your children taken, you then going through what you went through, and then now we're part two, you're experiencing that again. And then now facing the real thing of your kids are reunified, but trauma's there. And that's the point. There needs to be a better alternative than, put you away, take your kids. And there also needs to be a better reform in dealing with reunification, or the kid, how to help the kids prepare for that, and how to help the parents prepare for that. So that's part two. Um, so once again, part three, it happened the same way. And may I ask, like, what's the time frame for there? And what lessons or what questions did you have? Same question. What lessons did you have coming out of part two and the reality that they're being taken away? Then going to part three, what was the questions that came about? Because I know you had a lot.
The questions that gosh, I guess the core during that season just would have been um, being more uh, trauma informed um,
Mm,
regarding uh, the behaviors that the kids have to go through, unfortunately, or that they go through when um, they're separated from their families,
mm-hmm.
um, and completely educating yourself on, I mean, a lot of times I know, well, I'm going to speak from my situation. I know my children, they were put on medication. They were diagnosed with this, diagnosed with that. I can't even tell you the number of things that they were diagnosed with. Um, so just I guess again the lesson in that would have been just being more trauma informed. I mean, on that I thought I was ready. I really thought I was ready. We were, I
I,
but I was not ready for that side of,
mm,
things, the spitting on and the all. It,
mm.
it was a lot. It was a lot.
I, I can never express enough how, once again, from my perspective, how
A lot more on them though.
you, it's okay. Um, I can never express enough from my perspective how everything was a ripple effect from when they were taken that first time. You did not have anybody standing in the gap for you. And I must say, I'm gonna just keep saying this from my end. It should have been handled better. And going to part two, you could, regardless of it, even I'm gonna just say this, even if you were informed, you could never be prepared. Even if you went and took all the classes and got certifications, and somebody came to town and said we're going to teach you to
Mhm,
be informed about traumas, the reality is when you're in it, um and
mhm,
I wrote about that, like about how emancipating from foster care, there's something called independent living classes that get you prepared for adulthood, to
mhm,
transition to adulthood. But it's so different when you're in it, when you're actually facing the thing that you're going through. Is like all that goes out the window because you're in real life, and there's no manual, there's nobody there to say, hey, we got you. Or it's like you have to go through it. And so it's like I'm just visualizing those moments you're talking about your kids and the stuff you've been through, even your situation of being kind of locked up, like your Joseph moment of being locked up,
mhm,
and um, being made to feel, how you felt. I'm gonna just say this. I'm gonna piggyback off point one when I said, in point one, you shouldn't have anything to feel ashamed about. Um, Cornelia Coleman says she's so proud of you, by the way.
mhm,
Um, You have nothing to feel ashamed about because that situation was unpredictable. And even if you saw it coming, who could ever tell you you should have been prepared for that? Who I want to know who could ever say, well, you should have been prepared for that. You can never get prepared for that. And once again, I'm not a parent, but my heart goes out to you as a parent and everybody watching, and especially when it deals with kids, because I know how that feels. I know how it feels going through school. I know how it feels being told you need to be put on medication and being attempted to be put on medication, and then for your babies going through that real thing of unfortunately being put on medication. Man, the testimony you have, once again, that's why it was meant for you to speak today. Because if there's anybody out here listening to this in the replay, please share this with a parent that you know that may be going through something similar or have been through something similar, or you may know somebody in your family or a neighbor that is going through this very same thing. And if Maricella's testimony can encourage them as well, please, please, please share this. You don't know, just by her words, our words, we overcome by the word of our testimony, who this could help. And man, it's like my heart is panging for those moments of it already pangs one when you were saying coming back with trauma. That's a real thing. That's a real thing from foster being in foster care. You're already separated. That's a trauma by itself. Depending on the age of the child, they go through stuff that they should not be going through. Because unfortunately, I'm gonna just say this. Unfortunately, not every home. Oh no, her thing went out. So while we tried to reconnect her, not every home is 100%. Okay, you're good. You're good. You're good. Not every home is 100%. We want to help these kids. We want to do right by these kids. Not every home is like that. And unfortunately, we come from a system that is continuously broken where, yeah, we come from a system that's continuously broken that needs help. And so I can't express enough how just her being here today, sharing a real perspective of a parent's perspective, is huge because whether she knows this or not, Marcella, you're breaking generational stuff just by sharing your stuff. Because we're taught, that's another thing. You said this earlier. Oh, I didn't know I had to do this or to do that. A lot of times in our culture, we're taught to, especially as women, to be quiet and don't say nothing, don't fight back, don't ask questions, don't challenge authority, don't question anything. And if you do, you're a nuisance. And I'm pretty sure as a parent, that's all you were trying to do. Ask questions. Well, why is this happening? Why is that happening? What are you doing? Why are you taking my kids? And then the results you got. But testimony number two was a repeat. You were reunified, but unfortunately, you were met with their situation. So I'm a progress from there. Marcella, you left that point. You time passed, and then part three, and getting back to being reunified, and which I know you're dealing with now still. Could you um, take us from this most recent moment of being reunified? This is part three, and the feelings behind that. I don't know if she's still on. Okay, it's okay. And once again, we're talking about a real hard subject. I mean, you usually see me bubbly, right? But foster care in itself is our background. Like once again, 17 years, I was the kid, just like her children, in and out of foster care, in and out of homes. Oh, I see you. I see you.
What
Welcome back. Woo, woo, woo. Okay.
happened?
No, you're good. I was filling them in on just like the reality of
Okay.
being in those situations. And so what I was kind of saying was, um, once again, commending you as a parent, and once again expressing, regardless of what anybody says, you can never prepare for those moments. One, and nobody should ever make you feel as if you should have known better. Because even if I'm gonna just keep saying it, even if you've taken the classes, gotten prepared, or you went and took a, you were in a real moment, you were in real life. And
Yeah.
so without the right support system, regardless, how do you get through that? And it's hard by yourself. It's hard. So, what I was expressing before you get back on was, okay. So I know you've been through that real part two moment of man being reunified for your kids. So the points we're covering right now is part one. We're acknowledging how the system should have done better in how it handled her situation as a parent that was really just going through life, instead of putting her in a facility and removing the kids. How what other measures were in place for them to say, okay, let's try it this way before we're just going to do it this way. So that's measure one. That's part one. Part two is the reunification process. Myself and leaders like Cheryl Williams and all of us in the Faces of Foster Care, we talk about this all the time. The reunification process, that's a reform in itself. How is the system helping the youth right where they are, coming from those trauma
Mhm.
homes that they were in? Because like I said before you get back on, is unfortunately not every home is 100% we're here to help the kids. A lot of people do it for tax write-offs. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's compassionate. A lot of people do it for tax write-offs. A lot of people just want to add income to their households. And I'm a huge advocate, and I will go to anybody's school or presentation and say, if you're getting into foster care and your goal is not to really help these kids, please don't waste their time, because they know if you care. They know if you're for them. They know. And unfortunately, what your kids knew, the trauma they brought back with them. So number two is, how do you deal with how do they prepare for reunification? That needs to be dealt with. That's a reform in itself. And then how does the mother, the parent, also prepare for that? And how do y'all come together in that whole reunification process? It needs to be better dealt with, in a better way. And that's everywhere, not just our states. It's everywhere. Point three is taking us to point three. How was it for you this time around, this last time around? So the praise reports we're covering is the fact that she got her kids back. That's the praise report. The
Yes.
unfortunate thing is, it's been three times now. And the unfortunate thing is, she's seen stuff that needs to be reformed from a parent's perspective. Can you take us to part three? And how long was that before that happened? And what occurred? Was it even more on top of part two, or was it something completely different? And then, how did you deal? What steps did you take to, like, okay, let's get them back? And this is part three for you. What was that for you?
Um. Oh, I'm echoing.
Oh, you okay? Oh,
Okay. Now I'm not. It's because I have two different. Okay.
okay, okay. Yeah, I had to clear that one.
Thank you. So I would say maybe 2.5 years, something like that. 2 years, 2.5 years time frame again.
Yeah,
Um, I don't really want to speak too much into it because I
it's okay.
currently just
Yeah,
for legal purposes.
yeah.
Still, we are still going through this because it's not just me, obviously, going through this by myself. The children are involved.
Mm,
Um, but it was a time frame of at least a couple of years or so before the state got involved again. Um, and I guess I can just, I'm not really even sure how to verbalize this.
okay, okay.
I would just say that I would just say that, you know, I worked very, very hard to reinform myself, and just learn from every experience that both the children and myself had been going through these last several years. And that was actually working out really well. It took a lot of dedication, a lot of time, a lot of prayer,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of timeouts.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I feel like I got to a point with the kids where At some point they were completely weaned off of medication and we're doing really well.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
was like this up and down slope thing with the whole medication thing trying to get them off. I had got them I had another doctor, re-diagnose them that, decided that they did not need to be on all this medication that they had. And
Whew.
I worked really hard, praying with them, talking with them. We were in therapy, the whole thing to again re-educate, make sure I was educated, inform myself about the trauma that they had been going through, not just them, but even me myself, And I would say that in that, um, I allowed the father to come back into the home. And so, yeah, I'm not really sure how
Okay.
to else go
Yeah.
into
It's,
that.
we don't have to go there. We don't have to. It's
So that kind of was the
yeah.
beginning of that. For
Yeah. Don't, and I'm gonna say it again. Don't even feel bad about that real life choice, right?
yeah,
Because we beat ourselves up. I know we make decisions, and a lot of times our intent is good because we feel okay, it's gonna be different or it's gonna be helpful, or and but you know what, it just adds to our testimony of growth. And
mhm,
earlier I was saying how the system needs to be reformed. This is the stuff that needs to be changed. But you know what, your testimony today may be the very thing that needs to travel around. I'm going to petition this, that you be the one to travel around. That if you're listening, leaders out there, business owners, you need to get this amazing woman in on your stage, in your facilities, at your schools, at retreats, and have her speak to teach parents and families how to overcome what she went through. Because we could sit here really and say, well, the system needs to do this, the system needs to do that, which is true. But sometimes we go through it. We have to be the forerunners for it, or we have to go through the process so that we can then pull the others behind us. And that's what you're doing by just being here today. Your testimony, man. I can't wait to read it in a book. I really can't, because it's gonna. You need to. I'm see. I'm going ahead and say this. I've been saying all this to her in the background already, but I'm just saying she needs to have her own YouTube channel. She needs to be like daily talking, on her YouTube channel. People need to connect with her there. And, if you are liking what I'm saying, please let us know in the comment section. Cornelia, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that, because your testimony is how you're going to be able to help others. You are doing it now, and it needs to continue. And I'm just, once again, we don't have to go into the details of part three, but
mhm.
real life happened again.
Yes, real
Um,
life happened.
real life happened again, but that's okay. Like, just to be here now saying, hey, this is now the process we're going through, it just means you're an overcomer. It means, like, it just means you're a real person. It just means that, you know what, there's others that can learn from you, and we can all continue embracing you. Um,
I
I'm
I would
so
like. Sorry.
go ahead. Okay, excited. Go ahead.
Just kind of I feel like I have to add this in here. Overall, I mean, the good, the bad, the
Yeah,
ugly,
yeah.
in it all. I'm gonna speak for myself,
Okay.
for ourselves as parents, mom, dad, grandparents,
Yeah.
whatever, and in things that could be fixed within our family, within our family units, and things that could be fixed within the system. Good, bad, ugly, collectively, in it
Yes.
all. Um, I know earlier you had mentioned some of the things you had mentioned with some of the the things that do happen in the with foster care and all that.
Mhm.
But there is also good
Yeah.
family, good, and I know that you know that.
Yes.
There are good people out there advocating and fostering,
Yes.
and taking care of these kids that need a temporary place to stay while their family is, fixing the broken pieces.
Yes.
And so yeah, I just wanted to to put that out
Yeah.
there.
No, you're right because we got several of them in the chat right now. So I'm glad you
Oh
said
yeah.
that. We got several of them in the chat who do that very thing. Because and you're right, because it's not all bad. Listeners,
No.
I know I went on a tangent earlier because I'm passionate just like she is, because I don't
Mhm.
like to see when I hear people hurting, it gets me. And so, um, but this is why we're talking about it because we want to. The other part of the passion is we want to help be the solution to it. How can we be the
Yeah.
reform for it? And so, you're right. Like in dynamic, Dr. K Kaiser, we got Mr. Vetta. It's several people. It's already done ministries. It's several people in the chat as well. That's the exception to the bad home that you always hear.
Yeah.
There's we could count many in our collective, the faces of foster care. Dusty Stark, Cheryl Williams, Mr. Danny Van, um, I Miss Kathy Sohn. I could go down the list, but I do want to also, with you, commend the ones that's out here genuinely trying to do it right.
Yeah.
Genuinely say, you know what, our home is open. We're not going to treat you like, and I'm gonna tell you to top that off.
Mhm.
My former foster parent, she passed last year, but she
I'm
was
sorry.
a phenomenal, thank you. She was a phenomenal lady. Long story short, she came from a big family. So, that was what her and her husband did. Down the line, they took in fosters and they also took in neighborhood kids. Um, but I remember my first day in her home, and the reason I was there wasn't a good thing, but she told me to look around and she told me to like see if I wanted to be there. And she told me that whatever you have done, because I made a comment because of whatever trauma I just came from. She said, whatever you've done is in the past and you're here now and it's a new slate. And nobody, no foster parent has ever said that to me before. It made me feel as if I was wanted, included, and that I mattered. So shout out to the chat section because a lot of you represent her as well. So you know what? And speaking of continuing to speak on the great things that still could come from unfortunate stuff like this, you know what? I want to celebrate my guest, y'all, as a phenomenal leader. Despite everything she's been through, she has some amazing things that she's working on that I would love for you to connect with her on. Um, um, First of all, let me just express this. I heard through the grapevine that you're amazing at helping people, like if they have a business, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. If they have a business and they're desiring to potentially transition over to like a LLC or something like that, you have some expertise or knowledge in that area of how to do that. Am I saying that right? And if so, if I'm saying it wrong, please let me know and correct me and let me know specifically what you do, because I want to make sure people know about that.
Who told you that?
Somebody said something.
So yes, ma'am, I do. Uh, at some point, I was homeschooling my children, and because I had the time and the opportunity to just pick up and learn some new skills, that was one of the things that I delve into, starting a small business for myself back a few years ago, a couple years ago, not too long ago, but so yes, that was something that I also educated myself in, because I had no idea what I was doing, just like I had no what I idea what I was doing about these books or these
Yeah,
illustrations, or but
yeah.
I just kept trying to teach myself, and so yes.
Yes. Well, you know what? The bird in the background is celebrating you as well. So shout out to the bird in the background. Yes. Mr. Bell says, we salute you, Queen. Go ahead and toot your own horn. That is right. Toot your horn because you are doing it like it's amazing to really highlight that despite coming from just, stuff, life, that, God can, and you mentioned it earlier, he got you through, he's getting you through, and you're still going through a process even now, but even when you were taking the time to spend time with your children, he downloaded some amazing things for you to like adopt what you're doing. And listeners, we've been on a two-person screen for the interview. But before I take you to some of her stuff that I want to share, um, so at this last part, this final part of going through real life, what was the final lesson, or it's never final, but what was a lesson that you learned that you desire for to kind of like be addressed as far as reform, something that could be reformed as far as the system, or a question that you or something you didn't know that you learned that you now know? Because earlier the first part you was just saying like, is there was there other alternatives besides you getting separated and then your kids being put in the system,
Yeah.
and then for the second part you were saying um really no, sorry, yeah, we were talking about the reunification process and how that could have been a better, better
Mhm.
prepared for on both ends. For this last part, was there maybe like a lesson or something that you reflected on? And the reason why I'm asking that is because that needs to be in your book,
Mhm.
what you post
Mhm.
to help people. So yeah, was there?
Um, yes, ma'am. I would say, uh,
And it's okay if you don't have something off bat. I'm gonna just say this that I'm gonna just say this to kind of sum it up. Like, you're a survivor, and you taught us today to just remember that nothing's impossible to overcome. And despite what you've been through, um, with just real life, you're helping all of us, and it doesn't matter what we've been through or what our walk of life, or maybe we didn't go through your situation, or maybe we did. We could all learn the truth of perseverance, which is what you've been through. You've been through perseverance. I like to say that it's not what somebody's spoken over you, and it's not what your past says. It's the perseverance that creates your story. And right now, you're creating your story bit by bit by bit by bit. And so now I want to kind of switch things up and thank you, one, for the amazing testimony of life and perseverance. But I also want to now celebrate you, continue celebrating you as the phenomenal blossoming leader that you are. I've been like a little kid holding it this whole time. I cannot wait to share with all of y'all the amazing stuff that this amazing lady can do. Not only can she potentially, I'm pushing for this. Okay, so she has some freelance services, right? And if you're wanting to work with her on anything that we're about to mention, including the small business, mentorship, counsel, LLC, business structure, there go Miss Nevada.
oh,
Hey, Miss Nevada. So while she gets that, if you're wanting to work with her on maybe some small business counsel, personal counsel, because once again, I'm gonna just say this, that real life experiences qualifies you as well to be able to speak to people who have gone through your situation, or who may know somebody who's gone through your situation. So once again, if you are a parent out there and you're saying, man, how did you get through that, or I need some advice, reach out to her. You really can. I'm gonna let you know how. But first, oh, it's trying to go away. Okay, she's back. Yes. Okay. So we're going to highlight some freelance services that she can do, and part of it is she knows a little something. She's being so modest right now. She knows a little something about like business structure and like getting it right. But part of that is she also is a very creative person. She knows how to personalize things. She knows how to do graphic design. She knows how to like, so if you have a birthday coming up, I'm just saying, an anniversary or wedding coming up, I'm just saying, if you are you want something for your faith-based organization and business, I'm just saying, this is the lady you need to get with. And why? Because I'm about to share all this with you. Okay, I'm so excited. So not only did she contribute to the anthology The Faces of Foster Care Volume 3, which is on raisebridges.com. Bear with us. Like, if you want a copy of this amazing book that she contributed to, you're gonna have to reach out to her, and then we'll get it from the appropriate platform because right now it's being updated. So we'll get her to send it to you signed and maybe with a positive message or encouragement. But you can reach out to her. But first, also check out her book that is on Amazon. I can't wait to share this. I can't wait to share this. Sorry. Oh yeah, let me share my screen. I'm sorry. Let me share my screen. That's what I need to do. Share my screen, share this content. I'm telling y'all, you need to get with her on this amazing stuff that she's creating. She's a creator. Yes. Let's celebrate this amazing book right here. Uh You're One Brave Kid. This is a cover that the artwork, she did this artwork. She did the artwork. Of course, she did the book too. She, but she did the artwork. I really hope that everybody's seeing this. I'm trying to, you know, it's on Barnes and Noble. It's called You're One Brave Kid, and it's amazing. I'm gonna see if I could pull up some of these pictures that I'm looking at. Also, you can find this amazing book on Amazon.com as well. And so let me just read her bio since we're celebrating her, right? I'm gonna read her bio to you because you need to know who this lady is. Okay, meet Maricella, a remarkable author whose life journey is a testament, yes, it is, to resilience, faith, and unwavering strength. As a mother of five incredible children, she sees each challenge as a divine trust from God. Yes, through the heights and lows, joyful moments, traumatic events, she and her family have stood strong, never yielding to the adversities of life. In her compelling biography, she shares a narrative marked by an unshakable belief in the promises spoken by her Heavenly Father. Every obstacle becomes a stepping stone, and every trial is an opportunity for growth. Her life is a testament to the power of prayer, serving as a force field that sustains and empowers her
Yeah.
family through it all. And then, with his inspiration drawn from her deep connection with God, she weaves a tapestry of hope, healing, and perseverance. I go that word again, perseverance. Her
Mhm.
writing reflects the transformative impact of faith and the strength found in looking towards the heavens for answers that only God can provide. And that's how she was able to be sustained. In her work, she expresses gratitude to Jesus for being a constant source of inspiration, motivation, strength, and please support this amazing lady. Once again, Amazon.com, You're One Brave Kid, and it's also on Barnes and Noble. Gift this to a youth that you know. Give this to a family member that you know. Gift this to a mother that
Mhm.
you know. Gift this even to a friend and let them know, hey, you're one brave kid. And guess what? You don't have to be a kid to be a brave kid, right? You could be an adult like I am and get this gift and say, this is me as well.
Mhm.
So please support her. Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, You're One Brave Kid. And let me see, can I pull up some of this amazing artwork that I'm so excited about that
Mhm.
I think you need to also get with her on? Like I said, graphic design. She could do personalized gifts. Hey, this is the person you need to come to. You trying to get some t-shirts done, you trying to get some apparel done for your project, also faith-based stuff. That's all, that's where her passion is. She'll get you situated. Let's see. Can I share some of this stuff right here? My screen lets me is doing the moves right now. It's okay. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Yes. Haha. Here we go. Oh yes. Let's start right here. I'm gonna share this tab instead.
Mhm.
There's a special tribe of children somewhere in the world who are waiting for their families. I'm reading from her book. Her book. A family who loves and misses them dearly. Sometimes things happen we don't understand. Um, by this book is a reminder, but this book is a reminder of God and His beautiful promises. Man, look at that artwork, man. Look at that artwork. I'm like a little kid right now. It's beautiful. And once again, she can do that artwork for your project as well. That goes that cover, and that's really a representation of her and her beautiful children. Um, man, please support her because her gift. Like this is bringing healing. Just her artwork is bringing healing to her situation, and then could help you with yours. She does, like I said, apparel. I love that. I love that shirt. I want one. I want one. She could do wall art as well. Man, these are amazing. You have a phone cover. She could also do, yeah, mugs.
Mhm.
But any artwork, like, your projects, yeah, I want that bag. I want that bag.
Uh,
But I'm gonna just go through all these. Please support her. Yes, pillowcases, mugs. Man, I'm gonna stop right there.
mhm.
Man,
I'd
that
like to make a correction if that's fine.
huh?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I'd like to make a really quick correction if I may.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, you sure can.
whenever I started the letter turned book for my children, I actually worked with an illustrator. Shout
Okay,
out to Miss Wing or Wing, aka
okay.
Wing.
Oh, I see
Um,
it right here. Yep.
yeah, so we went through a lot of back and forth. A lot of the things that I envisioned in my mind, I knew what I wanted in the book and I
Yeah.
wanted to. So we went through a lot of trial and error because we couldn't get
Okay.
it right.
Okay.
Um, and then finally we decided to go with, because this was my vision. But in that,
Yeah.
um, I moved forward with her. But in that, because I had got a little, because
Yeah.
sometimes other people can't see your vision.
I got you. Yep.
So in that, I decided to learn digital content. And so this is where how I picked up on start creating stuff and learning the softwares and the systems and the whole,
Yes.
everything that has to do with digital creation online. Because it just started with this book. So I just want to make that small correction.
No, that you know what? Thank you for being transparent even in that,
Yeah.
because that in itself is a testimony. And you're so right. You are, let me just say this, you are so right. A lot of times we are so excitable. I can attest to this as well. We're so excitable and we want to share, just some ideas and visions we have with others.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, not everybody's going to be supportive or care or, see the vision. But by you like learning it and doing it and now being able
Yeah.
to reproduce it beautifully, that's also how I got into podcasting. I had amazing mentors who was like, they were already celebrating the book. And so I was like, I want to do a podcast too. And they rallied behind me. But because they supported the vision, it helped me thrive. And like you, I crash course learned about podcasting. So that's a tip for anybody watching. You say, oh, I want to do social media. I want to do YouTube. I want to create my own stuff. Um, don't be afraid to do so. Don't be afraid to learn it. And don't, here's another thing, don't feel intimidated like you can't learn it, because we're here to help you. Myself, Maricella, we have also Christina Marie, who's really good at graphic design as well. Any one of us, and then we don't mind. As a matter of fact, I'm petitioning for us to like whip up some seminar trainings that could help all of us, especially the faces of foster care. So if you want to get on that as well, let us know. Hey, we'll do some presentations. I'm saying we'll teach you as well. But thank you for being transparent even in that, because a lot of times, kind of like how when people had to stay home because of COVID, honestly, that's really, and I think you mentioned during sometimes as well, your creativity, God really gives those downloads, and then you're able to kind of like break the mold on a lot of things that may have said, oh, you can only do it this way, or you can only go to this person for help. But we clearly see here how he's, blessed you with the creativity to be able to I'm just saying, just this shirt right here.
Mhm.
Man, there's no words needed. No words needed. He's smiling, sir. I don't know why you're smiling, because that scene right now, I'm saying, But like, yeah, just the shirt right here, just the sacrifice he made for us to be here. I go on, but yeah, I need to like yesterday. Where can people order? Are these
Uh,
ready ordering yet or not yet?
I mean, I can just be reached right now, just on Facebook or on my phone number. I don't. I'm not. I'm barely. I'm barely coming out of the shadows. So I'm always like, thank God for my circle of support. You know who you are out there.
Oh, yes. I see the
Always
comment section. They're
encouraging.
rooting for you in the comment section. We all are. So thank
Yeah,
y'all, comment section.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
'Cause
Yes.
you guys, like everyone who's been praying and interceding, everyone in the chat, everyone here, like I just want to just say thank you
Yeah.
because you guys have been the reason why I've been encouraged and coming out of the shadows the way that I have been. Um,
Yes.
so just thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank all of y'all. Thank you, chat section, and those who are going to join the replay. Once again, the subject matter we're talking about today is not easy. It's not easy to talk about, and I think she did it beautifully. And I know a lot of that was hard to talk about, but once again, you don't know how who needs to hear that. They may not say anything, they may watch the replay, but it was what you shared today needed to be heard. I'm gonna just let you know what you shared today need to be heard, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get to share it more often. I'm rooting for that. I'm pulling for that. I'm pulling for it. So yeah. Before we go, right? Because you've shared so much amazing things as far as how we can potentially, we could go into more of it. But it's so in depth. It's so much stuff. Any lasting words that you want listeners to take with them as a reflection of how we can collectively or support each other and maybe our organization to better address these areas that need to be dealt with, or anything you want to leave with the audience, or any words that you want to leave with them to think on.
Mhm. I would say continuing the conversations. No matter what your expertise or background might be in, whether you're a parent, whether you've dealt with foster care directly, whether you're someone working, for the state in the system, just having that dialogue and having those conversations, just sitting down and talking about it and addressing it and trying to just figure out a way to make it work, But I'm a strong believer that nothing works without implementing God in the picture.
Yes.
So,
So true. And I,
yeah.
I want to thank you for being transparent there. I love all the guests. Like they've been so free. And this platform, I'm never gonna say don't, yeah, because I know what he's done in my life. So I just thank all of y'all for just being so free and open to even sharing your
Thank
faith
you.
and how that's really was help got you through and getting you through.
Yeah.
Um as well. This picture right here, this is the one that's helping us stay, have that childlike faith and be reminded that we're loved. And so thank you for just
Yeah.
sharing your testimony today. It's been a blessing. Thank you for just being my guest and helping me celebrate. I know we talked about a hard subject today, but
Mhm.
this episode was meant to be on the 31st because this closes out May as Foster Care Awareness Month,
Mhm.
and we need to
Mhm.
hear the parents' perspective as well.
Yes.
And we commend you for just being the icing on the cake. We do have a few more individuals that's going to be interviewed in June that relates to the subject matter. So they're going to be an extension of May Foster Care Awareness Month. But you, as my guest today, is just really putting the icing on the cake. So I really thank you for being here. I thank you for just giving your heart and really letting us all reflect on how we can try to help be the solution. And it's not always easy. A lot of times you have to just locate yourself from people in your ear and surroundings that don't mean you well. um, then sometimes it comes quicker, and sometimes it's something we learn over time. But for you, I'm gonna say this again: never feel ashamed about this testimony because it's going to help more people. All right.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, I thank you for being my amazing guest today.
Thank
I
you.
thank you for everybody in the comment section. Um, I thank you for your words
Mhm.
that's helping us, even me now, overcome by the words of the testimony, right? And so if you've enjoyed this content, everybody in the chat, everybody in the replay, please share. please share all of this with somebody you know that you feel could benefit from it. You go watch it yourself again. If you caught like maybe the last 10 minutes of it, go watch the whole thing. You're going to learn some stuff and really reach out to her for support. You know, you want to, if you wanted to work with her on small business, your personal life, if you're wanting some amazing gifts and stuff created for you, and some projects you have that's coming up, um, please reach out to her. Please reach
Thank
out to her and show your love and support, um, as well. And then, you know, gift these books. You're one brave kid. Gift this to yourself. Gift this to a kid you know. Gift this to anyone you feel that needs to be reminded that your perseverance creates your story. All right, I'm Shalane Michelle Tate, MBA. Thank you for helping me celebrate May as Foster Care Awareness Month. Just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be doing some trivia next month. I don't know when, probably mid to last part of the month, to see if you've been paying attention to any of the episodes this month. There's going to be some prize drawings. I'm just saying. So hopefully your name will be pulled in the raffle to win some prizes. I appreciate each and every one of you in the comment section. I appreciate all my guests the whole month, including today. And I appreciate the realness of the subject matters that we covered today. And look out for some promotionals for upcoming episodes. And then before we go as well, I don't want to miss this part. I almost forgot. Can you please share with the listeners the amazing opportunity you have coming up this weekend? Because that's an amazing I'm just gonna celebrate you. Yes. Tell them
you.
about
Yes, ma'am. So I got asked, thanks to a friend who invited me to an event, connecting with the others. I was asked, to help translate a book that's written, a series of books that's written by children, who are experiencing, family members who are incarcerated. So I'll be helping them with that project this weekend.
she is so humble and modest. That's a huge thing, and that's only adding to the words of her testimony. And let me just say this as well. How amazing is that turnaround to come and now do that? Because once again, she had her own Joseph moment when they took her, put her where they put her, really trying to shut her up. And now she's coming back, coming back, and pulling those that's behind her. Mind blown. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Please continue to help celebrate her because we all are. And once again, being fostered, adopted, orphaned, marginalized simply means you're gracefully chosen, meaning you have purpose. And even in this testimony today, if you've been through what she's been through about being on the other side as a parent and have faced this very hard subject matter, know that you're not alone. Know that nobody blames you. Know that you don't have to continue beating yourself up, right? Because life has happened to you, but you're getting through it with her as well. All right. Shalene Michelle Tate, MBA. Thank you so much for your time. Share this content, support her, book your consultation with her for your stuff. I'm just saying. And you all have a dynamic rest of your day. Have a good day. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.